Hello everyone and welcome to another Red Gaming Tech gaming news video as usual with me, Marta, here on the 19th of March. Some rather interesting news for you today as the EA Chief Executive Riccitiello resigned. Or he will be resigning on March 30th, shall I say, but he has of course handed in his resignation. Details of the departure aren't exactly clear, but EA has stated that it was a mutual agreement. He will benefit from 24 months of salary and various stock options. Speaking of his departure, Riccitiello said, EA is an outstanding company with creative and talented employees and has been honoured to serve as the company's CEO. I'm proud of what we have accomplished together, and after 6 years I feel it was the right time for me to pass the baton. I remain very optimistic about EA's future. There is a world-class team driving the company's transition to the next generation of consoles. So, he's going to be replaced by a man by the name of Larry Probst, and please excuse me if I pronounce that incorrectly, and he's going to stand in as the executive chairman. The board of directors will actually have to hunt for the permanent replacement and will likely be considering the second-in-command, Peter Moore, as a key contender for his replacement. Now, anyone who thinks that his leaving doesn't have anything to do with EA's rather rocky history lately, well, you're a bit silly, but I'd say most people have immediately thought of that the second that I told you what this news video was actually concerning. I mean, obviously there's the whole SimCity disaster area, which happened very recently, and a few of their games have not exactly done all that well, or at least not as well as they would hope. Not to say that they've done badly, but they haven't exactly been the rip-roaring successes that EA planned for, such as, say, Dead Space 3, Need for Speed Most Wanted, and Crysis 3, and obviously the notoriously disliked game Medal of Honor Warfighter. As I said, none of these games did badly by any stretch of the imagination, but they were not the blockbusters that EA's investors were banking on. And of course, as well as that, they had the rather, shall we say, lackluster release of the MMO Star Wars The Old Republic, which barely even got to a sixth of World of Warcraft popularity, and basically didn't do all that well at all, even after repeated changes and changing to a free-to-play model. So obviously it's a shame that this guy has had to leave because of all this, but I say that someone important stepping down such as this was kind of inevitable after the bad time of it that EA had been having recently. However, some of the are of the opinion, English is hard apparently, that EA would have been in worse shape if not for the decisions that this man had made while he was actually in power. He's the one who basically thought of, well, we need fewer games but bigger games, and basically took EA in that direction, and whether that was a good thing or not is kind of down to opinion, but some people will argue that if the company hadn't been driven in the direction that Riccitiello drove it in, they would have been in much worse shape. But I don't know if that's necessarily true. Some people might argue that, but looking at the history of what's happened to EA in the last couple of years, I'm not really sure. Hopefully whoever takes over as chief executive kind of has a different vision, because they've gained a lot of hatred recently, and not just because of SimCity, but because of this whole microtransaction thing, and they never exactly had a good reputation with most gamers to begin with. Most people view EA as basically the devil, and they've kind of sort of earned that reputation with some of the decisions that they've made recently. So maybe his leaving will bring in a new realm of change, or maybe not. Maybe the new person, whoever that ends up being permanently, will be worse or make worse decisions. So be interesting to see what happens with the company. They're obviously not going to go anywhere anytime soon, but maybe this will mean some positive changes for EA. I certainly hope so, because, well, you know, they're one of the biggest companies around at the moment, and they kind of do have quite a big hand in the direction that games continue and the gaming industry in general. So, for example, if their whole microtransactions in every AAA game thing actually holds water and continues to go forward and people buy into it, then we might see more of that happening. So I don't want to see that, of course. That's a whole different topic though. I don't want to go off on a rant too much. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please do let me know your thoughts on this and whether you think this is going to be a change for the positive or a change for the negative, or if you think it's just going to remain the same and that him leaving is not going to impact the company's practices or how well the games do or what have you. Be interested to hear your guys' thoughts as always. Anyway, thank you again for watching, and I'll see you again next time.